Happy February, everybody. The month of love, I guess. And it is time for new mythic, new class, and some Zool destruction just for funsies, and a glory troop that's super weird, but let's go check out the world of Crystara. Check the updated stream schedule. Let's hop in right now. We have a raid boss. It's Fiery Zool, the Elder God of Fire, and we have to beat him up using Cinemirage troops, which is not going to be easy or fun. But if we jump into the shop, we see we get a new weapon if you get it up to tier 3. This is the mix weapon for this kingdom. It's doing it based on Cinemirage allies. There's no Cinemirage class, so that's going to be weird. So this weapon exists. I recommend you get it because, of course, eventually that'll be useful. And then the new troop that's coming with the event is this guy, Mr. Envoy of Pride. Nothing so special in the trade section, explodes a skull just for fun. A lot of Cinemirage people just do that, they explode something at the start. But it's just doing regular old damage to the boss, and then if an enemy dies, you steal 4 magic from everybody. So that's okay. Troop, nothing too crazy, not gonna help you kill Zool super much, as far as any stat boosting, any weird gimmicks. But it's in there. Let's look at some teams. First up, we've got ourselves this one, which is going to be using Wrath for some skulls and mana generation with the Mang, of course. Gluttony's in here, not for any kind of weird devour stuff, but more for the explodey stuff. But if you happen to devour anybody, that's fun. Beyond all of that, Envoy of Pride is going to be making an appearance, and it's just going to be there to blow up Zool. So Gluttony and Wrath are your mana generators / damage coming out of Wrath. Mang, of course, to steal all the attack on the planet, and then Envoy of Pride just to help you blast down Mr. Zooly Boy. This team should be able to punch on through all the way. Separately, we can try this weird team if you don't have a bunch of stuff. So this is taking advantage of the new glory troop, Mr. Broker of Greed. He is, some dashful, debonair looking Gambit cosplayer kind of guy. This guy is very interesting, and what he's doing is giving 5 to a random skill on some other ally, boosted by all of your gold, on a 1-to-1 boost ratio. But then you lose all your gold and you explode 3 gems. So obviously his name is Broker of Greed, he goes super nice with Greed himself. Greed is also from Cinemirage. Greed, of course, gives you a ton of gold based on their life, and then you gain an extra turn, he's empowered. So these two together means you cast Greed once, and then Broker of Greed can give some troop on your team a ton of a stat. That's random, unfortunately. But then you lose all your gold, so you need some way to keep casting these two if you feel like doing some crazy stat pumpy stuff. Beyond all of that though, this is just using a Mountain Crusher with a Titan, so you have barriers, you have mana for all these people. You're going to be able to use Broker of Greed to either pump up your main hero up top if you just want to get a ton of attack doing it that way, or you could potentially cast Broker of Greed on Envoy of Pride. If you ever hit magic, it's going to be a great time. So this team should also work. It is very awkward, but at a minimum you can keep using Mountain Crusher to just keep casting Envoy of Pride, and every now and then you'll be able to do some crazy stuff with Broker of Greed and Greed. Unfortunately with this kingdom, it's not super easy to put together teams that don't suck. The amount of mana generation that we get in this kingdom is pretty bad. So this could be a team you could use. Alternatively, of course, you could just use a Mang with any form of mana generation that you can try and slap together, but it will be pretty hard since there's not really any other mana generators in here aside from Wrath. So that's your team for the low level, folks. I wish you luck. That will not be a fun event, although it will be fun to use Broker of Greed. In Soulforge, this time around with troops, we've got ourselves some okay ones. Abysna, not so much, but Yasmin's Chosen, not the worst. She's creating a decent amount of green damage, she's entangling people constantly with this last one. Decent option out there, however, her sister, if not in reality, certainly in function, is much better choice this time around. So Wild Queen, of course, stealing a ton of attack from an enemy, giving it to your first troop, and then creating a bunch of skulls and green. It also gives every wild folk 2 extra attack at the start of every turn, which is who cares. And then we've got this summon a Bone Storm when an ally dies thing, which could be super scary or awesome, depending on how that plays out. Wild Queen, of course, is my recommendation as far as a craft goes. I have her ranked incredibly highly. I use her constantly. She's useful in PvP and events. Not as much in events, but certainly is useful in events. But PvP is where she really screams and shines. Queen of Sin, not the best. She's basically doing true damage to 2 people and then summons either a Wrath or a Lust, but then she blesses all Daemon allies. There's 2 different Daemon classes at this point. So she isn't awful, but no loop ability. As far as her traits go, enemies lose 4 from a random skill when an ally casts a spell. This is awkward. She does have some spell reduction though. So overall, I would say Wild Queen is certainly the highest priority craft, followed by Yasmin's, then Queen of Sin. Abyssna can just sit in the background and cry. As far as weapons you can craft though, this is where stuff gets lit, because we got the Doom Crossbow up in there. Doom Crossbow is great. It is one of the best Doom weapons that are out there. It's transforming all blue into Doom Skulls. And then also fun about this is that it creates yet another Doom Skull when you cast it if you level it up. So it's a very safe weapon to use. It can't fail like some of the other Doom weapons do. The damage output is disgusting. Really, 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 really great weapon. So I strongly recommend that you craft the Doom Crossbow if you can afford it. And if you're a super baller and you can afford the Doom Crossbow and the Jack-o'-lantern, you should absolutely craft the Jack-o'-lantern. This is kind of like a mini Essence of Evil, if you will. It's a worse Essence of Evil for sure, but on different color days, like red or purple, this could be a mana generating weapon that also inflicts some debuffs on the enemy team. I like this weapon a decent amount. It doesn't feel amazing when you use it, but it has come through in the clutch, and if you're struggling to put together teams on red or purple day, Jack-o'-lantern is a very solid option to chuck into your lineup. So both of these weapons are actually very craftable. Obviously the Doom Crossbow is the highest priority of these, but Jack-o'-lantern is also a fairly high priority, especially if you're a big fan of Guild Wars. In the event keys, it is of course the Sin of Mirage, because that's the event. In here there's some stuff. Queen of Sin, not the best mythic, so I would strongly recommend you don't go opening for her. Wrath is of course extremely useful, so Wrath is absolutely worthwhile. If you don't have a Wrath and you feel like spending a bunch of event keys, Wrath is pretty darn solid. Lust is used for defense and defense only, and you only use her when you feel like being a piece of crap. She's not the best. She is someone that you can't really use effectively on Guild Wars because a single Lust isn't going to be enough to kill everybody on the other team, but a couple of them usually are. So if you don't have Lust, I wouldn't go nuts trying to get her. Wrath, of course, is, however, very useful. Beyond all of that, Greed is a very essential troop as far as the Skeleton Key team. If you throw an Egg Thief, the Skeleton Key weapon from the Thief class, Mr. Greed, and a Cedric, which you can get from the Vault, that team will basically destroy most content in the game, including PvP to some degree. So Greed, of course, a very essential troop to have in general. Beyond all of that, nothing else too crazy. Overall, I'd say this is a fairly low priority week for event keys. Wrath is really the only one that I'd get my panties in a bunch over. But that takes us to the spoiler section. On Tuesday, it is the Sunken Fleet for the Faction Assault. For the Sunken Fleet, I use Surprise, this team. Anytime you can use blue, it's always this team. So this is what I use to punch on through all the way up to 500 if you so choose. On Wednesday, it's a pet rescue for a new pet called Beels. It's like Beelzebub, but Beels, I guess, is probably what that is. You do get a kingdom bonus for Sin of Mirage when you get it. It is not the best kingdom for a team bonus, however, but it's a new pet. So Beels will be there on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, all is quiet. Because then on Friday, we get 2 new things. We get the new class in Barbarian, and we get a new mythic. Let's start with the class. Barbarian is coming on Friday. This is an orc type troop, and it is basically a tacky kind of guy. So since it has the war and the forest tree, naturally skulls are going to be your friend. Forest tree is always nice because you do get the root trap at the earlier levels. In the war tree, you're basically just getting the ability to get enrage on 4/5s, which is nice. You also have different methods of gaining attack from there. So the storms tree is going to allow you to start with the brown storm if you so choose, and then also get you lightning strike, which will get you some mana bouncing on 4/5s if you get it all the way up to 70. Beyond all of that, its traits Gaining 3 attack when you take damage, that's okay. I don't like traits that trigger on damage unless they're nutso. 3 attack I would not call nutso, but for a first trait, not the worst. Agile is number 2, yet again confirms that this is going to be a very scully kind of class, so the ability to dodge some skulls not awful. But then its third trait is gaining 3 attack whenever you match red gems. So the amount of attack scaling you can do with this kind of class should be interesting. Overall, I'm not overly interested in this class, but at the same time, as far as an orc class goes, it could have been worse. So, orc class coming to us on Friday. As far as the weapon goes, it is going to be the Orc King's Club. Orc King's Club that comes with the class is basically doing heavy splash damage to an enemy, boosted by skulls, and then it stuns all the effective troops, so if you've used TNY before, it's going to feel like a TNY, basically, if you use this weapon. As far as its upgrades on the weapon go, there's really nothing all that overly exciting. You know, gaining some life, gaining some attack, doing a little extra splash damage, you do enrage yourself, and then you bleed somebody. The weapon is kind of whatever. If you're extremely lacking in stun options, this could be fun, but other than that, I don't see myself using this weapon pretty much ever. No loop ability, damage output shouldn't be too crazy. It's okay. For the class event itself, some teams you could use would be this one. This is taking advantage of the fact that Gar'Nok is in there. So Gar'Nok, of course, is your orc captain guy. He gets all orcs 50% mana start. He also gets 3 doll skills if you put him in the last slot, which is okay. But then he does 1 damage to everybody on your team, and then he creates a mix of red and brown, boosted by orc allies, on a 1-to-1. So since this team is going to use 3 total orcs, you could use this as the Barbarian class itself if you want to get better boost out of Gar'Nok. However, you'd lose barrier on browns, so I wouldn't recommend that. He'll mana generate decently enough with only 3 orcs versus 4. But this troop is going to be essential as far as getting mana. Drake Rider, of course, is also getting you yet even more mana by also doing some damage on top of it. Pretty fun. But then we use Gargantuar, because why not? It's an orc event and we kind of have to use some of them. So Gargantuar and Gar'Nok work together because every time Mr. Gargantuar takes damage, he gains 8 attack and magic. So he's going to be able to do super blams. As long as you Gar'Nok a few times, this will get boosted a decent amount. Also, every single time someone dies, either on your team or theirs, you're going to get a boost of 15 to his damage. So cast Gar'Nok a few times, and after you kill a troop or 2, then the damage output on Gargantuar should be pretty great. So this team is lots of mana generation with Gargantuar, basically. Just use Gargantuar to just snipe people over and over and over again. Separately, if you don't have lots of cool toys to play with, you can use this team, which is again going to be using a Titan for that protection, barriers from browns. However, we do have some other decent mana generators or converters available to us. The regular old orc troop is basically creating a bunch of attack, which is whatever, we're not going to put him in the top slot. But he does turn greens into browns, which is very useful. And then he enrages himself, because, you know, whatever. You do get some bonus red mana by putting him in your lineup, so this will be useful to get some brown mana. Then Drake Rider, of course, is converting all the yellows into reds, so we have some really decent red and brown mana generation going on here between these 2 troops. And then we've got Mang with some Fist of Zorn just to create a bunch of skulls for us. Just keep in mind that obviously every time you cast Drake Rider, all of the yellows are largely going to disappear, so you might have to work a little bit to make this work. However, with this much mana generation with a Mang, you should be able to just punch on through regardless. Again, just use any barrier class you have available. Titan is obviously the most effective, but, you know, if you have Rune Priest, Plague Lord, whatever other one you feel like running. Barriers on browns, you need it to use this kind of a team. But you could use this to blow up the class event as well. And then finally, also on Friday, we get the new mythic, it's Mother of Darkness. It's Possessed King's girlfriend apparently, because they're from the same kingdom of Darkstone. This is going to be a Daemon rogue type, and this troop is interesting. I don't know if I'd go as far as calling it good, but it is interesting. So it was nerfed as we would all expect. Previously this was saying it was a 4x boost, now it's a 1-to-1, which is a little more sane but a little less fun. So as far as its spell goes, we're doing true damage to 2 enemies, the one you target and the one immediately below it. And then it's boosted by purple gems on a 1-to-1. So normally there's about 11 to 12 gems of any given color on the board on average, unless there's a storm running, of course. So let's just say it's 12. This should be doing roughly 45 to 50 true damage if you're an endgame player to 2 people, which is, you know, decent. What's fun about that, though, is that if you kill anyone, then it's going to create 12 purple gems, which is pretty great. So when you do kill with this troop, you do get the ability to loop. So this is like a finisher troop. I would never use this troop, like I wouldn't cast this troop unless you're definitely killing somebody, because then you're creating a loop and then you can do more fun stuff. So the way that I imagine I'm going to use Mother of Darkness, if I ever use her, is going to be putting a decent team like of 3 above her that has a lot of mana generation and looping, and then use her to finish off one of the troops, which will then loop and then do more fun stuff. This should be weird to use, but it isn't potentially awful. Might be, but we'll see. We'll have to play around with it. As far as its traits go, a Dark Storm is summoned every time an enemy dies, which is of course nice because when an enemy dies and you did it with her, you're going to create more purple. A Dark Storm will be in effect, so this will help with the boost on her damage, and it'll also help with looping since there'll be more purple on the board. So that part's pretty fun, decent synergy there. Stealthy, can't be targeted by spells, that's fine. And then Bloodmark, inflicting bleed on all enemies when matching 4 or more gems. This is sneakily not awful, actually. So I'm not the biggest fan of bleed at all, basically. I don't think it's the greatest debuff. However, the ability to passively do it to everybody on any 4/5 means that it's going to be really, really, really easy to stack 4 stacks of bleed, which is the maximum amount of stacks, which means every turn you'll be doing 10 true damage to everybody. What's nice about that with her is that you will be able to use that extra true damage that's being done because of bleed to set yourself up potentially for a kill with her spellcast. So I think this is an okay troop. As far as design goes, it's actually pretty synergistic with itself. You just need to, again, put her on a team that loops pretty heavily above her, preferably with some form of true damage in the mix. But beyond all of that, she is going to be fun to play around with. The art is certainly amazing, and the fact that she's in the same kingdom as Possessed King certainly has to raise her at least 1 tier, right? She's got to be a little higher tier than normal. I would expect she's probably going to be like a top C tier, bottom B tier kind of a mythic. Unless there's some cool true damage looping troops that ever get released, there are currently none. She is essentially the first, kind of. We're not going to necessarily get a ton out of her. Grey King being paired with her seems to make some sense since he does do true damage and he can theoretically loop since he destroys. But we'll have to see. This is coming out on Friday, so check your VIP keys, your glory keys, your guild chests, all of that fun stuff. She will be there, not in event keys though, so don't open up a bunch of event keys trying to get her. But Mother of Darkness releases on Friday. So there you have it. We've got ourselves some new interesting stuff to play with. The class I'm lukewarm on, the mythic I'm also more hot on, but not necessarily the hottest. The art's pretty hot though. But that's all we got for you this week. Of course, again, please follow me over on Twitchland so you can catch all the exciting action. We have switched the stream schedule to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We always have an awesome time, and this will allow me to show you all the cool stuff that's happening on Friday. You can watch me see if I get the new mythic live. Wow. That's all I got for you guys this week. If you're a Switch player, stay tuned. There's more right now. Switch folks, you guys on Friday get yourself the Dervish class, which is actually incredibly fun. This is because of this monstrous skin thing. You're going to give all monster allies 2 skill points on 4 or 5 matches, which is a lot because anytime you loop, every single monster on your team is going to get all kinds of fun little stuff. So Dervish class, super stat pumpy awesomeness. Beyond all of that, you get Hunter's Marks on 4/5s. Beyond all of that, you get yourself the ability to explode a mana gem, which is okay. And then nothing really else. But I have this class all the way up to 100. It is super fun. There's actually really, really nice monsters you can pair with it. So Dervish class is definitely something to look forward to. It makes PvP teams extremely fun, and theoretically has some use in events. Just no defensive capabilities really, so that makes it a little more dangerous to use in events, certainly in the top slot. But Dervish class is something to get excited about. That is coming out for you guys on Friday. As far as the mythic you guys are getting available to on Friday, it is Queen of Sin. Queen of Sin is okay. She's basically like a daemon queen because she's going to bless all daemons every single time you cast her. Of course, bless is the somewhat newer mechanic for you guys, which is cleansing everyone that it hits immediately, but then also protecting them from any kind of debuffs while bless is active. Bless, of course, falls off whenever that troop casts a spell or matches skulls to do damage. But though it's doing true damage to 2 people, and then it summons a Wrath or a Lust, which are pretty decent daemons to be summoning. Wrath is obviously the preferred of the 2. So Queen of Sin is out there. She does make enemies lose 4 from a random skill when an ally casts a spell, so that's okay. And then she's got some spell reduction, also okay. Overall, I would say this mythic is okay. So I wouldn't go super nuts trying to get her. Of course, it's new and shiny, so I don't blame you if you go nuts trying to get her. I just realized she's got some like weird tassel situation going on there. I don't know why I never noticed that before. But that is going to be available for you guys in VIP, Glory, Guild chests, and Gem chests on Friday. So if you feel like getting something new and shiny, that will be there on Friday. As far as the Soulforge for you guys, there's a couple that are pretty decent that are worth looking at. Of course, the first one would be Scorpius. Scorpius is being used all the time these days in the Explore mode. He, of course, is going to kill people if they are poisoned in any capacity. So if you happen to have Uralai in your lineup, she can poison everyone on 4/5s, and then Scorpius is just ready to take them all down whenever you cast him. He gives all brown allies 1 stat each turn, which is okay. So Scorpius, if you're looking for a faster way to get through Explorers and you have access to some decent poison options, you could be using Scorpius to destroy everything in Explore mode relatively quickly. Beyond all of that, the other one that is in there that's decent is the World Breaker. World Breaker is super basic as far as a troop goes, but it's super effective. So he's exploding pretty much the entire board, and it doesn't matter if he gets webbed, he's exploding that board no matter what. And then he's doing a decent chunk of damage to everybody on the enemy team, so mana generation really nice, damage output pretty decent. Beyond all of that, he's getting 5 to a random skill on 4/5 matches. Obviously, the one you care the most about is going to be magic. Every time it hits magic, you're going to be doing even more damage to everybody. If you happen to have a way of fairy firing everybody on the other team, Worldbreaker can start to get really scary really fast. So Glitter Claw, for instance, actually synergizes really nicely with Worldbreaker. So those would be the 2 in the Soulforge that I think is worth your time. Also in the Soulforge for you guys, it is the Doom Crossbow. It is incredible. It's converting all blues into Doom Skulls. It also, if you level it up, creates yet another Doom Skull just for fun. So it has even higher chances of looping, but it can't fail, unlike some other Doom weapons. So damage output is disgusting. Doom Skulls being created is obviously disgusting. One of the highest priority weapons you can get in the game. So Doom Crossbow is an absolute must craft. Beyond all of that, there's Jack-o'-lantern, which again is kind of like a Essence of Evil mini. It explodes some gems, it inflicts a couple status effects. Sometimes you get lucky and it does a lot. Sometimes you don't get so lucky and it does a little. But the main reason to craft this weapon is if you care about Guild Wars. Since it's a red and purple weapon, as far as red and purple weapons are concerned, it's kind of hard to find ones that are loopable. This weapon is loopable. So if you are at all interested in Guild Wars or PvP, this weapon, very high priority craft as far as I'm concerned. It fills a gap that exists on a lot of teams for red and purple days. So those are the 2 weapons in the Soulforge you should try and keep your eye on. And that is actually everything for everybody at this point. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I'm back on my regular life, a regular schedule. We are good to go. And I'm going to be streaming Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I'm going to be trying to release at least 1 other video a week, preferably 2, but probably 1, just from a time point of view. You know, it's hard. But that's all I got. Enjoy your week, enjoy your new stuff. I hope you get your mythics that you're hoping for. I'm Keylime, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.